If you pay attention to the Gospels and to the few hints they give us, you can just begin to make out the personalities of a few of the disciples. Most, of course, are only mentioned once or twice by name and only in a list of the 12. But a few, like Thomas and Peter, actually have speaking parts. Yesterday we followed what we could of Thomas's story, and we found him to be a bit stubborn, sometimes holding back before committing, but once committed, putting his whole being into ministry. Today we take a look at Peter, whose story and personality seem different from Thomas's in a way that I find comforting. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. If you were asked to select the best person on which to build the church, Peter would probably not make your short list. He is by turns brash, impulsive, cowardly, and sensitive. You would rather have someone steady and even-keeled, someone wise, someone with appropriate gravitas. None of these words remotely describes Peter. And yet, it was this very man on whom Jesus proposed to build his church. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, we read in Matthew, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." What is so curious about this is that Peter did not seem to be the steadiest, most steadfast disciple. Consider these incidents. When Jesus came to the disciples walking on water, the ever-impulsive Peter tried walking on water himself, but began to sink, crying out to Jesus to save him. When Jesus told the disciples he would suffer at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, Peter actually rebuked him. Jesus rebuked Peter in turn, saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." After the Last Supper, Jesus tells his disciples they would all desert him. Peter, responding with his characteristic bravado, says, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." And even when Jesus tells him he will deny Jesus 3 times before the cock crows, Peter doubles down on his bravado, saying, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And then, when Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter cannot even stay awake with him. And of course, only a few hours later, Peter denies knowing Jesus to those lingering around the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. I could keep on going, but you get the point. On the face of it, Peter is not the one we would choose to found the church. But here's the thing about it. It's not our decision to make. What matters is that Jesus chose him. Why? Well, for all his impulsiveness and false bravado, Peter remains a devoted, if flawed, follower. To me, the choice of Peter is of immense comfort. It is clear that Jesus isn't looking for perfection. He's not looking for people with spotless records or stellar reputations. He's looking for flawed people like you and me. And trust me when I say I myself am a deeply flawed human being. And yet, Jesus chooses the flawed, the imperfect, the inadequate to bear witness to his grace and mercy. Come to think of it, if the point is to bear witness to the grace and mercy of God in Jesus Christ, you would never choose perfect people. For the perfect have less apparent need of God's grace than the rest of us. But to us, the flawed and imperfect members of the flock, it is our very imperfections that serve to highlight God's grace. So, come to think of it, maybe Peter is the perfect choice to be the one on whom Jesus would build his church. And in his choice, there is hope for us. Tomorrow, Peter's brother, Andrew. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do, this day and in all the days ahead.